Hey, what's up, guys? It is, what would you say, day 3? It's Saturday the 14th of March, and I would say this is probably like day 3 of Corona, like quarantine.
Corona Fest.
Yeah. Alex is selling shirts online, Corona University. He's like sold. It's hard to sell merch online. I mean, especially if you're not like. We have Dan Petel here and Tim Carhart. Dan Petel manages Ian Kirkpatrick.
Yeah, manage.
I have I can't believe I just remembered that name. You probably were waiting for me to fuck it up.
Yeah, that's par for the course for you to.
And some of actually my favorites, actually that M83, that I have this M83 record, Junk, which is one of my favorite. Oh, that's
Ian? One of my other clients. No, that's my client, Carl. So yeah, I've got about 17 producer-songwriters that I manage.
About a fist away from the actual mic.
There we go.
Well, yeah, your mouth.
So pull it close.
Can, like, move it around.
You should you can lean back and get the thing closer.
You said you had 15?
No, right now we've got 17.
Oh.
17 producer-songwriters across the globe. LA, New York, Toronto.
So Dan manages songwriters.
And producers.
Yeah, and producers like my friend Jason, who we've had on this podcast a bunch of times. They will write a song, lyrics, but they also can produce, mix it and find the sounds and find the drum tracks and actually sequence the song, which is kind of it's an interesting thing. I feel like even when I was in the industry, I would always trip out on that. Like, I don't understand. Like, are they, like, I produce, like, why am I getting together with someone who produce? Because writing a song, understanding lyrics and melody and concepts and how you put that together and how just certain things that will work or won't work or it's kind of an interesting. But Ian is a songwriter. He writes on guitar and.
I mean, Ian will do a little bit of everything. Sometimes it's just on guitar or piano. Sometimes it's fully produced tracks. He'll collaborate with other people. But no, I mean, look, I think professional songwriters, you kind of get two things with them. You're getting experience, right? And people who have known qualities.
Right.
And, for a lot of these bigger artists, it doesn't make sense for them to go into the recording studio. They're printing money on the road. They're selling merch. They're doing photo shoots. They're selling out arenas. They're making zero money when they're in the recording studio trying to write a song. And a lot of them will go in and try and write their own songs and then just waste months and then inevitably come back to guys like Ian or Jason or just other pros.
So you're saying it actually saves time and money.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, it's a known quality. So let's just say, for instance, it's kind of why, I don't know, why you almost go into a store and buy a shirt. You could try it on. If there's an existing song, you could listen to it.
Yeah.
You could sing along to it. You could go, oh, I love this song, versus if you're just going into the studio to write, you have no idea what might come out of it. It could be a horrible song that you just wasted a bunch of time on.
Also, with songwriters, they're writing all day, every day. Yeah. Their knife is sharp,
Yeah.
So if artist is coming off the road or whatever, it's they're not just doing that part of the craft as often,
It's just crazy to me because they're, in my eyes, they're the real artists. I'm a singer-songwriter. I, over time, have just graduated or gradually been drawn to certain artists that do all their own, even now, Father John Misty or, my favorite artists are Chris Christopherson and James Taylor and John Denver and, people that they're singer-songwriters, and there's just so many now. There's actually a lot of them in like the country music genre, and I've been like, going down like a Sturgill Simpson / whatever. Like there's this guy, Sam Outlaw. Have you heard of him? He's kind of like a younger hit, like the country. It's not like country. It's more like slow singer-songwriter music.
It's like folky. Almost.
Yeah, like that's my shit, because like it's, or even like Bleachers, which is Jack Antonoff's project. You can hear such a specific vision. It's almost like you can hear the vision, like it's like such a, they're not just like the Taylor Swift stuff he did is cool. You can hear his influence on it, but it's not as, the vision isn't as refined. Like when you hear that new Bleachers album, it's like, holy shit, this is like so.
Is there a new Bleachers album?
It's not new, but it's his.
I think they've only released one.
No, they have two.
Oh, two.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
The newer one, the first song is called Mickey Mantle. It's just like a whole, it's a body of work that was very curated by the singer-songwriter / producer. And it just for me, it has so much more depth. It's like Pink Floyd. Like they weren't going in and having people write songs with them.
No, definitely. I mean, look, in pop music and music in general, there's kind of 3 categories. There's music written solely by the artist, which is still really common. There's music that's a co-write, so it's the artist is in the room, and the artist is writing with the producer, the songwriter. Sometimes it's just one collaborator, sometimes it's multiple collaborators. And then there's what we call outside songs, which is essentially just that song was written by professionals, and the artist comes in and puts their vocals on.
Like Taylor Swift is a co-writer.
Taylor Swift is a co-writer.
But maybe certain songs were just straight up written by or for her.
I don't know that Taylor.
She prides herself. Yeah, she prides herself on
being an artist and a songwriter.
Yeah, which is cool. But at the same time, if Jack or what's his Joel Little if they're bringing a song to her that's like perfect, which probably occasionally will happen,
she'd still switch a few words up and slap her name on it.
Yeah, or maybe
Beyonce will do that too.
Yeah, maybe they weren't full songs. Sometimes some of my clients sometimes will send us a musical track and somebody kind of humming a melody over the chorus. And that's like something that's like, okay, that's something an artist could hear and go, I like that. Now let me come in and let's make it more my own.
Yeah.
And buzzing?
Yeah, that's like really loud. Wait, what? There's like, oh, that was weird. It was like something from over here.
I mean, I think a lot of us like when you can really hear an artist give their personal take on the world. I think a lot of us gravitate towards that. But then in pop, it's like, it's really hard. It seems like it's an easy thing to do, right? But it's actually really hard to write something simple enough where like anybody can kind of get it, but complicated enough where it doesn't sound like a nursery rhyme, right? But like,
no, I mean, pop music, it's so funny because I grew up similarly to you guys. I grew up going to Warped Tour and concerts and listening to rock music, and you would kind of have those, girls in high school who would listen to Britney Spears and NSYNC, and you're just like, that music's fucking horrible.
Right.
And now, having been in the business for, 15 years, you have this certain appreciation for that skill set.
For pop music.
For pop music.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like what everyone wants to be doing, but they talk shit about it. But it's like, this is like the most successful genre, and there's actually really, really cool, good pop music, like Tame Impala, for example.
Yeah, I mean, we're really fortunate. We've had some really big songs between the clients, and when you think about an incredible pop song, not these like they'll do very well on radio, but then the ones that actually have legs, where like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, people will still lose their shit at a wedding when the song comes on, like. Think about the amount of skill that it takes to come up with something like that. That like writing a song that, your little 12-year-old niece will like, and at the same time your 80-year-old grandparents will like.
Yeah.
And and everybody in between, that's really hard.
Yeah, like that Bruno Mars song. That's just, it's like the biggest song. I don't care. I mean, hats off to Jason for Girls Like You or whatever, but like that, you know, white golden hair sand. The Maroon 5.
It's Uptown Funk.
Okay,
Mark
that
Ronson.
Uptown Funk song. I'm sorry, but that's the biggest song of the decade. I that's my opinion. Like, I don't care what the sales are or anything. That's the
numbers
song.
would definitely say different, but that thing was massive.
No, it was a monster. I'll be
it's-
completely honest with you. We had a song that came out that exact same year and just barely edged out Uptown Funk for Radio Song of the Year. We did a song called Shut Up and Dance for Walk the Moon.
Dude, so that's a song I actually like. I hate Uptown Funk.
But
like, I hate the song. It's just actually funny that you bring that up, because that's a song that I wanted to. I forgot what it was called, but that's a guy from Fun too, right?
No,
Or no, Group Love.
yeah. So
I love Group Love, and I love that song. What was the artist?
Well, it was Walk the Moon put it out, and they co-wrote that song with my clients,
Like,
Captain
just
Cuts.
like, that's crazy, because like that group is like not like a popular.
No, I mean, it was definitely...
Yeah, no.
It was just such a good song.
No, we definitely did not think at the time we scheduled that session. And that was a co-write. That band came in, they wrote it with our guys. And we definitely at the time did not think, oh, wow, they're going to write some big, massive hit. Because really at the time, Walk the Moon had, you know, an alt following, but they weren't at that level. But yeah... That ended up being a bigger song
How does that go?
year.
How does that go?
Shut up and dance with me.
Shut up and dance.
This woman is my destiny. I forget.
Yeah.
Every time I'm on this podcast, me and Pat just start singing.
No, because like, I think it's cool to be able to, for the listener to be able to actually identify the song. So it's called Shut Up and Dance.
Yeah.
Shut up and dance with me. I feel like the hook came like the rhythm of the hook was like, you almost like need the music to, is your destiny. Wow, so good. You actually can't. I've been flagged on because in the beginning when we first started this podcast, we would like play like entire songs and like critique them, but like we've had problems with Apple just playing music like I just did, like, or
yeah,
in the background. In the beginning, actually, we were plugging the phone.
Yeah, you actually owe Dan money right now.
That's so funny.
Warner Chapel, if you're listening.
Dance with me.
I granted a gratis request.
That's funny.
And it's crazy because, yeah, they're not the biggest band, but
Right.
that one song is one of, as This Is Noise, his company's called This Is Noise Management. That's one of This Is Noise's biggest songs, right? Just
Yeah.
as one singular song. And then oddly enough, one of their other ones is not from who you might expect because they've had Selena Gomez and the biggest pop stars, but is also High Hopes by Panic at the Disco. And that song is just a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah,
still,
I mean,
and will for 20 more years.
Yeah, I mean, those are in the industry, they call them like evergreens.
It's so cool to have like rock. It's rock.
What's
But
so
you know what?
We
You know what's
love
really
like,
interesting?
rock music, and Ian is influencing pop culture in a massive way.
That wasn't Ian.
That was an Ian. That
Or
was actually a
whoever.
different one.
But your company.
I mean, but here's what's really funny is, they came out, Billboard came out with this, end of the decade biggest rock songs, and there was a huge falling out online, Twitter, Instagram, because when they mentioned the top 10 rock songs of the decade, High Hopes and Shut Up and Dance were on there, along with like Imagine Dragons, 21 Pilots, a lot of
Half
songs.
the chart was 21 Pilots and Imagine Dragons.
Yeah,
actually.
I mean, they literally actually between the two of them maybe had 5 or 6 songs, and then our 2 songs, And there were a lot of people who flipped out saying that isn't rock music. That's a rock band playing a pop song.
Fucking kidding me? Panic at the Disco is fucking indie rock. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, so but it did bring,
reminds me of when we were in high school, when we were in middle school. I'm really glad that you mentioned this because I have such a fucking issue with this. Like, remember when Green Day was like so dope in middle school and then they started blowing up and everyone was like, fuck Green Day. I just remember being in middle school and thinking like, what do you talk? Like, I remember getting angry at kids for not liking the band because they became successful. Because maybe it was just because we had
another hometown one for us with Incubus, heavy.
Yeah,
we're like all into them, and then they got.
No, the whole concept of selling out was so because like you had that with Green Day, you definitely had that. 311, Blink 182 was such a big one because Blink 182 went from this like punk rock band to really at a certain point they were kind of the biggest pop band in the world, and.
I mean, my dream, one of my many like dreams or passions that I would love to do is like a documentary on pop punk, and I think this would be a huge piece to that puzzle. Like when all those bands were getting big, and you know the like what do you call? It's like it's not irony, but it's like punk is supposed to be a certain thing. Me and Veronica were actually just talking about this on when we were snowboarding. Punk doesn't have anything to do with success. It's not whether you get it or whether you don't. It's whether you're being honest. Just because success comes doesn't mean... Like, Blink didn't really change who they were.
I think that becomes a little debatable. I mean, look...
Green Day did... Like, I think that they just want to make the best music that they can. The problem is when the system influences you. I mean, I know for sure NoFX, they're like, I would want to tell this story from the perspective of like Epitaph and Fat Records, but like they could talk about all these bands and what they're all, just the debate and the opinions, but like selling out is like, oh, the band you love is now able to like eat food.
Oh, completely.
And you're fucking mad?
No, I mean, by the way, too, with a lot of these bands, it's also... You got to think about the fact that they are growing up, right? So some of these bands started off, you know,
teenagers,
what you're listening to is the lyrics of a 16-year-old kid living at home, and all of a sudden now you're listening to the lyrics of a
father,
a 21-year-old on the road who can now drink and go to bars, and you know, and so you're kind of evolving, right? And at the same time, look, like with a lot of these artists too, record labels get involved and. You know, to a certain extent, these bands are starting to see more money and going like, okay, if we have a bigger fan base. But yeah, I mean, we could probably talk about that for hours.
Well, no, and I think it's a really good thing to explore because I feel like Kurt Cobain, a big part of the reason that he killed himself, you know, the main reason he killed himself is because he was addicted to heroin and he had he was, you know, obviously an addict but like, I think on the surface, it was like, oh my God, like I've sold out. Fans were probably talking shit. Like he wasn't a part of that like cool thing. And people were, you know, he got more success than he, you know, thought he wanted. And the image of who he thought he was supposed to be became something else and it got away from him. And it's like, if you're judging artists based on like success or outside things, it's like you need to just take a look at like what the fuck are you doing? Like just listen to the music, watch the movie, appreciate the art for what it is, and don't worry about the results. And I think that's also actually a big part of like this whole learning to lose concept of the podcast is like losing, winning, like results. Like that's not like our society has kind of like put so much on that, but it's not what it's supposed to be about. Like it's supposed to be about the art or like the journey or the process. And it's just like really fucked up that people, like I was just on a Facebook page and there was a photo of Blink 182 and Green Day, and it's a Fat Records Facebook group, right? And they were like caption this photo and everyone is like talking shit. And I'm like, I don't ever like write people, but I wrote something like to someone, because someone wrote something like sellouts and I was like, that's just so crazy that you're going to fucking judge a bands for having success. Like, if you really liked the bands, you'd be stoked that they had success. And I personally think Green Day's, I mean, I like Kerplunk, but like American Idiot's like a masterpiece.
Yeah, no, sure. I think people get so caught up in
how
like,
are you going to fucking hate?
I mean, it doesn't even have to be that complicated. Like, for me, music ultimately is like, it wakes something up inside of you. It makes you feel a certain way. It maybe makes you want to dance or cry or whatever it is. Like, you could be a fan of an artist and not like specific songs. You can not be not a fan of an artist, but really like one of their songs. I mean, I don't know. I think people try and like categorize bands into sellouts or like, this is really cool. Like, it's ultimately just about the music and the art.
That's it.
And yeah, if you like that 3-4 minutes when you listen to it, it does something for you, like, great. Like, it doesn't need to be something beyond that.
But if the songs you don't like are on a super unsuccessful underground record, you'll be okay with it. But if the songs that you don't like are on like a record that did really well popularly or whatever, you almost have a right to like be angry at the artist. And like, what is that?
No, I mean, but that's kind of, unfortunately, some people do that in life too, right? Is like,
Prime got here.
It's like whether or not, like, you know, you kind of feel some ownership.
Yeah,
some people tend to feel that ownership of like, I was a fan when they like couldn't even like sell out places, and now like they owe it to me to make the kind of music that I want to hear.
You also like, I feel like we naturally like we'll be quicker to like something if we found it somehow.
Yeah.
It's like you discover it, even now it's like algorithms will feed you, but if you felt like you found some shit, even more so than when a friend sends you a song.
But there's like some ego in it.
Yeah,
there's like a lot of ego. Like, I'm the first one to know about this. I mean, look, to a large extent, part of my favorite thing about what I get to do in the music business, and for me it's kind of become addicting, is like when a client sends over a song and I'm getting an MP3, you know, at 2 a.m. and it's like, hey, here's what we did today. I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. I'm one of 5 people on the face of the planet that's heard this song. And I know, like, fast forward a year, it's going to be all over radio, and people are going to be doing TikTok videos to it, and people are going to be dancing at weddings. There's something so cool about that. And like, for me in my position, I experience that all the time. So the kind of, you know, it's less about feeling cool and special and ego, and more about like, I get to be a part of something, you know, something unique and maybe help craft something. But ultimately, a lot of people
also
you
could be also the fate of that song is in your hands a little bit too, because a lot of times if it's just amongst songwriters, you're now going, oh, this could be for Selena, this could go to Bieber, this could go like, who are we going to send this to right now? Who should we give like a first stab at this?
Yeah, it could go to all these different pop stars and experience all sorts of different fates.
And like, some would say that art is the most influential thing for like our culture, which affects our world in a big way, and not to be like grandiose or whatever, but like I believe that. And I think that if the right people are involved with like creating this art, I think it can be good for the world. And
something that's kind of cool, just because we just played.
I'm really happy that, like, I don't really know Ian, but like, I'm really happy that Jason, knowing who he is as a person and how much he's not just trying to write a song that's going to work. Like, he actually is bringing his beliefs into, and he's like a positive guy that's trying to affect the world in a positive way. And to be able to reach that many people. I mean, the Maroon 5 song about like what lovers do, it's like about like being mature and like owning insecurities and like, he's talking about some cool shit that like will help people be better people, and then our world could be a better place, rather than like, you know, just talking about like lean and parties and using, which actually could harm kids. And it's weird that I'm even talking about this growing up as a kid who was like, fuck the world, punk rock, like.
No, I mean, by the way, same.
You know what though? But even when we were kids, like, we gravitated towards groups like Rage and groups that were like had something to say and had a purpose. And like, I recently said this thing to Victoria because she was like bummed out about me posting some shit about like porn, and like she's been one of the people that have been trying to help me see like what is my purpose. And I kind of told her like, yeah, like you can't really be punk without a purpose, you know, like that's kind of the definition of punk in a lot of ways. It's like, what are you trying to say, or what are you trying to do? Like, and I don't think that if you don't have that purpose, like the heart in it, it's just not there. But no,
I agree with that. I mean, to your point, what's really interesting is a big A&R exec. He and I were talking recently, and he talked about how much better positive music sells over non-positive music. So something like, if a song lyric in the chorus is "I don't want your love,"
right,
versus "I want your love," a song about "I want your love" will do so much better than "I don't." It just people want, positivity.
Yeah, like we were talking about something earlier that I think is really important. This ego thing, like, and like trying to remove that. And I think like when I listen, like I think that like when you're, you know, everybody like inherently wants to have something that's their own, or they want to root for the underdog, or they want to be they want to feel special, and I think like what you said, it is driven kind of like by ego. But I think if we can like navigate through the world without that, it's almost like, look, there's a saying in the program that's like, ego is not your amigo, and like, you know, kill your ego before your ego kills you. Like, and navigating through the world and like life choices without ego, I think is so important. And in the same way that like we listen to art and music without an ego, and if we're able to just appreciate it for what it is, and regardless of how big it could get or how big it is, or I'm almost like so like I'm almost so like wanting to be different that I actually like want to like the new Taylor Swift because it's popular and because it's like not cool to like. And I have to actually watch even that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to have any external shit affect my appreciation for art.
Yeah.
And I think that same thing can be applied to like something like TikTok. Like, I started doing TikTok just because I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to let any of the noise like affect. Let me just try to like do something new without like an ego or without like any kind of weird.
No, a lot of like people have like preconceived notions about like, I don't want to hang out with that person or listen to that or go to look at this artist's paintings or this, because they feel preconceived notions about who listens to that artist or who does TikTok or I mean, and that's kind of like an extension of ego.
Yeah,
right?
Or any character defect. Like, anytime my decision for anything is being motivated by like fear, any kind of fear or like anger or any kind of negative, whenever I'm making a decision based on that, I just know, okay, that's not the right. So when I go to like start a TikTok page, you know, if the reason that I'm able to do that is because I'm not bringing, you know, negative character defects into that decision. And as soon as those things start to affect my judgment, I'm like, okay, wow. And I'm grateful for like having like a 12-step program for me. And certain other people have like, you know, religion or God that's sort of like my guiding light. And I'm like, because for me, like without that, or even this podcast, or if I'm not constantly like reminding myself, oh, is this decision coming from a place of fear or love? If I'm not thinking about that every day, like my mind will always go to fear, and I will always be making decisions based on that. And then before you know it, I'm in this like really fucked up place, because like you said, like humans want to gravitate towards positivity. Like, and I think it's really cool that you're saying things sell more when they're positive, and I'm noticing a really cool reaction on
externally. I think it's true, but I feel like internally, most of our default setting is fear, and negativity,
dude. Especially me.
So it's like if we're not checking ourselves on a regular basis, if you don't have some form of meditation, you got to have something that's like checking yourself on a regular basis. Otherwise, you're out there.
And that's like,
it's true.
That's actually really like the reason I do this podcast in particular, because I need to be reminded of these things. And, I think anyone listening to this, I've already had a lot of people like, this isn't like let's like talk about like pop culture. I mean, it kind of started as that, but like I would always bring it back to like, oh wow, Kanye is trying to affect pop culture in like this, whether or not anyone agrees with what he's doing or whether he's crazy or not. But this podcast started when he was like on that, like when he went on TMZ and was talking about like all this crazy, like, we're slaves to, culture and like results. And I really identified with that because I feel like he was trying to break through that and try to be anything and use like love as sort of his guiding light. And I thought that was really cool. And there was even like videos of paparazzi coming up to him where you would expect him to normally be angry. He actually would have a conversation with them and be like, yo, I get you're trying to make a living. And it was like, whoa, this is like a new person, So we would always try to bring pop culture, whatever was happening in the world, back to like, okay, where does this fall in line with like the certain kind of principles that we live by? And it's called Learning to Lose. And I always like to ask the guests like what that means to them. And anyone that's successful, like you've built This Is Noise from fucking nothing.
Well, that's when I knew him. So I was at Warner at the time, and he was, he was like in like the minor leagues, you could call it, like just trying to get his couple clients anything. Like would take
just
anything.
Enough to like cover rent for the month.
We'll do something on spec. We'll do spec, meaning we'll do something for free if you like it. We'll get it. So it's like
you have to. You're crawling. You're scratching your way up. If you want to get a job and be on salary with someone, you can just like do that. But if you want to try to build something and achieve a dream, like you got to fucking
Do you have some notable losses in those beginning days?
But also, like what does learning to lose, like, what does that mean to you? And I'll like kind of like, if you're not,
learning to, there's so many things that hits me in so many different ways.
Right.
Ultimately in life, you're going to have way more failures than success.
Yeah.
Like in music, our songwriters will write 100 songs to maybe get one that, makes it off a hard drive and gets released out. Just in life in general, I'd started so many different businesses that tanked until this one kind of worked, and I didn't even know if it was going to work. Ultimately, you're going to fail more times than you have success. The average person has dated so many different people, and you're maybe going to get married once, twice. I don't know. I know a couple of people have been married like 3 times. But ultimately, you're going to have tons of failure in relationships until you kind of find that perfect one.
Or even minor failures within the perfect relationship. To make it perfect, you have to be like willing to have fights and like little minor...
Yeah, exactly. So, your ultimate... like... learning to lose, that's the most important thing. It's like ultimately, you could get bummed out and get sent into a tailspin when your business fails, when a client fires you, when a meeting goes unsuccessful. And it's all essentially what you do after that failure that will lead to success.
But so how do you pick yourself back up? I've thought about this a lot just because it's sort of this like slogan that I'm trying to like turn into a brand. But like, I'm just wondering in those times of fuck, dude, like this is crazy. Like, how do you keep going?
Ultimately for me, it's like if you genuinely wholeheartedly believe that what you're doing is right, that like you're going down a path that you're so passionate about, you tend to not even think about it.
Yeah, because you actually like love doing it.
Yeah, you can't imagine doing anything else.
And that's the whole premise of like enjoying the process. And if you like doing it, then you just are going to have to keep doing it. I almost wish that like our society didn't even have words like failure or loss or winning or losing. Like I almost feel like those words hinder us in a lot of ways, you know? And I'm a little bit annoyed right now because like Gary Vee has been like, I don't know if you see that post that I put on the Learning to Lose page where he says like, I love to lose, or he's like,
yeah, he's obsessed with losing.
Okay. But now he's put, well, that was just one post.
But winning and losing is it's so subjective, you know, like, I don't know. I saw this letter. It was like some viral thing that was on Facebook that this principal sent out to all the parents at this high school. Mm-hmm. And it said, okay, all your kids just took the midterms. Like, parents, I want you to know, like, your professional athlete son might fail his math test. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. Like, he's not meant to be a mathematician. You know, that daughter who, you know, failed history, it's not meant to be a historian. She might end up running a company. And I think it's just so, winning and losing becomes so subjective. I think it's very rarely is it black and white. You're either a winner or a loser.
It's
like
never.
It's 99.9% of the time it's that gray area, because there's always going to be somebody quote unquote more successful than you. And there's always going to be somebody less successful than you. But if your competition is just yourself.
Yeah. I was literally just going to say that. It's like growth.
Yeah.
Am I doing something better than I was doing yesterday?
But that school scene is cool. I like that we're getting more progressive as things are more transparent and people are communicating more. Like even when I was just over at Cisco Adler's house, he was talking about his putting his son to a school in Malibu that's like obviously super expensive and whatever. But he's like, yo, these classes, they're like 6-person classes. There's no grades. There's just reports on like giving you an update.
Wow.
And they find what the kids are interested and they morph the classes. Like the same 6 they'll shift the kid to another class as they form these like pods, and they like formulate the interest of what they're going to learn. And they sort of embrace.
Dude, like it just seemed when I was growing up, like I feel like I never, because I'm on some like punk rock shit, like I never really like, oh, this is the way the world does it, but I don't know. I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to be a part of that. My mind was always like, I feel like, what if like me and all my friends, like we all like to do a certain thing. What if we all just like put all our intelligence and motivation and creativity and we used it together to build something? Wouldn't that be like, and then I would like also see like how stupid just like people are, and I would go and like work for whatever, like whoever, or I would see someone who's like successful. I'm like, this person's like not like, that seems like kind of retarded, you know, like why? And I would just look to my friend, not that like we're better than anyone or whatever, but like, you know, and I just always am paralleling like Gary Vee or Joe Rogan just because I love like a lot of their messages. And he talks about like, just get a fucking house with a bunch of your friends and like just build something, you know? And I just feel like our society, because of the internet, is turning more into that now.
Great ideas are coming from everywhere. And you see like people starting home businesses in their garage, turning into multi-billion-dollar companies, you know, over the course of like, yeah, I mean, some of the most successful people I know didn't go to school, didn't graduate from an A-level university. Some of the least, I'm using quote, successful people I know had straight A's and this and that, you know, like those two I think are really unrelated.
Yeah.
And society years ago thought they were very related, you know?
And our schools better start doing shit like this because like, the shit is changing.
Yeah. It's been pretty broken for a while.
Right. It's weird.
Just forcing you to want to care about certain subjects that the way that they're forced, you're not even going to figure out a way to care about them because they're being force fed it. You know?
This thing just like...
It moved?
No, it just stops recording after...
Oh, right.
Yeah, we pick... This gets posted on the Apple podcast app, and then I'm starting back. This is like the 50th episode almost.
Oh, wow.
And we post we're going back to the first one, and we have a Learning to Lose YouTube channel, and we're posting each podcast from the very beginning, the whole podcast on YouTube, because it's like, and then this...
Oh, they're not there now.
No, not like the whole. I mean, that's like 2 hours.
Yeah. So what is that? Why does that make a difference?
Well, because you're missing out on views that, like, some people just listen to Joe Rogan on YouTube, and I've always...
I don't know, but I'm saying, why haven't you been putting them on there?
Well, we have some of them were up on the Ridge YouTube, but it was like, should we really be posting 2-hour podcast on? I just been trying to figure out, like you've always said, like, you can't be doing all these different things.
Yeah, you should have a different YouTube channel.
So now that we were posting the full podcast in the beginning, but then we kind of stopped and we started just doing like smaller, like 10-minute YouTube things, and then Instagram things. But then it's just like time and like. But now we're just going back and we're putting every episode on the Learning to Lose YouTube. And the video part of it is important because, like, people want to see, like you said, air quotes or whatever. The ones that we don't have full video.
Well, I'll even do that. Any of the podcasts that have the YouTube, a lot of times, even when I'm driving in my car, I'll go to Joe Rogan's YouTube over the podcast just because I won't be watching it while I'm driving, but like then I'll check in, just see the guy's face.
The problem,
you want a look of the face.
And then if they're showing, this is what the ship looked like when he saw the alien aircraft, I'm like, okay, I'm looking.
The problem with that though is that like the app, the YouTube app isn't as like good when it comes to listening to things as the podcast app is. Like, the podcast app will always go back to right where you left off, and it also has all the podcasts right there. Whereas the YouTube app, like if you go to a different video on YouTube, it's like hard to go back to the podcast.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You don't like it's just not as intuitive as the podcast app is. But a lot of people aren't like even on the podcast app. They're just they're
just on YouTube.
Yeah,
so,
or a lot of people,
you might as well do both.
A lot of people aren't on either. So we're just doing both.
Dan, are you even listening to podcasts?
I'm doing a couple. I'll be honest. There's a couple I listen to.
What do you got?
I mean, it's just honestly, I got to kind of figure out the ones that I really like because I have at this point right now just a combination of different ones that friends will send me, and I think it's kind of like I'm slowly getting to know each one and figuring out which ones I like. Yeah. I'm looking forward to listening. So ask me in a month or two and I'll have a better idea.
You haven't really like jumped in yet.
Yeah, I haven't jumped full into like, oh yeah, I listen to Joe Rogan every,
But you've listened to like a few of his?
Yeah, I've listened to a few of his.
By the way, that Joe Rogan comedy show we were going to got canceled too.
Oh my God.
There's another one. Yeah, it's like our friend, one of our friends, has been super excited about like her birthday party going to this thing. Everybody all rallied and got tickets and we're doing the whole thing. But
yeah, I mean, with everything that's going on, I mean, I know people whose weddings are canceled.
Yeah,
who
for sure.
Paid the caterers, rented out the venue, and it's like I think it's actually legal to have more than 250 people together now. I don't know.
I know. What is that? Is it actually illegal or just recommended? I think corporations won't mess with it.
Well, this is what it is. If you're doing that, you're like being frowned upon because you're like contributing.
Yeah.
It's like
to like the end of the world. People are taking it that far.
Yeah.
It's going to get more messy before it gets better. Cause even the the big scale stuff, the festivals, the amount of lawsuits that are about to happen is just crazy. But even then on the small scale, just weddings, all the small independent vendors are going to try.
Wedding photographers to caterers to, I mean, this is going to affect so many people in so many different ways. Because look, in society, we're all connected. You know, we're so connected.
It's showing us more than ever right now how connected we are.
Yeah. I mean, look.
Russell Brand had a good statement on that.
I mean,
I didn't get to watch that whole thing.
Let's look at something as simple as like all of a sudden wedding photographer. Let's talk about how a wedding photographer could affect somebody like me. That wedding photographer who's not going to have work for the next month is probably canceling Spotify realistically, you know, so she or he could have more money for food or pay their rent, right? So they're going to start cutting out a bunch of things that aren't necessary.
100%.
And that's going to affect all of those people.
The thing for me that's making it not like I'm like not panicking because the playing field has been leveled. So it's not like someone can leave us and go somewhere else. Like everyone is getting affected, which for me, it's like, oh, it's not as scary as I would have thought it was if this was something that was like just affecting our company. Cause then that makes us like the world.
The entire world. I mean, that's what's so crazy.
It's almost for me, I'm almost excited and I actually am happy. I think because I think sometimes this type of shit has to happen for us to like grow as a society.
I mean, this is actually as far as we've been alive. I mean, this is something that affects literally every human being. So if you think about it, sometimes really there's like, you know, you turn on the news and there's a war in you know, Russia and whatever. It's like, that's so far away. That's not affecting anybody. Or like, oh, there's a tornado in Kansas. It's like, okay, that has, unfortunately, pretty much no effect on us here in LA.
Right.
And so this is the first like global pandemic, at least that we've been alive for, to where it's like the world economy is crashing.
Yeah,
like,
China and
Italy and Spain are the three right now.
How,
yeah, I mean, those are the ones that are getting hit the hardest.
They're just ahead of us. That's
they're
all.
just
but
ahead
where
of
did
us.
it start?
I mean, from what I gather,
China or South Korea, one of the two.
They don't really know, but yeah, they're saying China. But I mean, you know, we just watched that movie Contagion, and part of the movie they're literally trying to figure out where it came from. And you know, when two people are shaking hands, it's like, oh, that person gave it to that person.
Dude,
how do you know?
so
Because
crazy.
it could have been that person who gave it.
Steve and Andrew are about to watch Outbreak.
Yeah.
Like
they're all trending. They're trending on
what?
Yeah.
So
Well, I think-
insane, dude.
I think part of why people are watching it is they're like, let me learn from the mistakes in the movie and like, you know, not.
I mean, I'm
not
just
play
like,
with the monkey that has the killer virus. But I don't think it's that obvious.
We're in such an unknown. You're looking. It's for some reason it gives you like comfort. Like even the news is like, even though it's kind of given fear, like just being like, just doing anything you can to relate. And it's a subconscious thing.
Yeah. I have friends who think what we're doing right now, the three of us being in a room together, is absolutely batshit insane. I have a friend who, you know, had emergency food, just kind of like how I do, and is not leaving his house for a month and a half. And is just like, you know what? I just want to be safe. I just want to be safe. At the same time, I'm kind of in the school of thought of like, if this is going to get crazy and a bunch of people are going to die, I don't know. I've always thought in like the zombie apocalypse, like, do I actually want to survive that and be one of the last 10 people on Earth? I don't know that I really want that.
Oh, yeah, I just, you know, obviously we don't really, us three sitting in this room are not really having to fear death. We can be, I'm in more fear like the financial side, but we just can't. I'm just trying not to be like negligent and like also inconsiderate of like, you know, the elderly and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just not going to like, I'm not throwing a 500 person party and then wandering around the streets.
I mean, I just keep thinking about like Mother Earth, like just doing what like needed to be done. That's just like,
it's
fucked up. But like
forests burn down because they need to like replenish and spread the seeds.
Yeah,
and,
like pollution is down.
The movie Bambi.
No, I mean,
pollution is down like crazy, and
Yeah.
it's only been a couple weeks.
yeah, no, I mean, there's something to it. I mean, it's kind of like,
Also, like the old guard. This sounds fucked up, but like old people, a lot of old people are stuck in a certain mind frame that's actually hurting. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not basing that on any like facts. I'm just saying from what I just feel like we're evolving at such a like an exponential rate because of the internet and because of technology, that like the old guard is getting left behind when it comes to certain like mental concepts and like emotional intelligence. Like we're talking about, like our parents weren't talking about this type of shit, like how losing is good and ego. And I just feel like that for me has always been the key to success. It starts in the mind.
Yes.
And if your mind's fucked up, you're never going to make it through. I mean, I was just watching Remember the Titans last night with Denzel, and it's like,
we watched Denzel last night too.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
like-
continuing that. I'm actually pulling a U right now where like I just did one Tony Scott. I mean, I did a Cameron Crowe, Vanilla Sky. I'm like, fuck it, on to Jerry Maguire, which by the way,
It's the best.
That if anybody that hasn't rewatched that in a while, it's fucking phenomenal. And then Say Anything, and we still got a couple more to hit. I did Almost Famous recently too. And then I'm about to even dive into Elizabethtown, which is like a 30%, but we'll give it a go.
But wait, Cameron Crowe did the one with Matt Damon in the zoo.
Yeah. So I haven't seen that, so I'm about to
Yeah.
watch that. And I also did PJ20, which is the Pearl Jam doc.
Yeah, I gotta see that.
Yeah.
That I gotta see. No, it's dope to like go down a director.
I know I haven't done enough of that.
Yeah,
to
it's
be quite
it's
honest.
the best, because then you really get to like feel like their style.
Yeah, like when you watch Vanilla Sky and Jerry Maguire, there is such a similar
Yeah,
feeling.
music, like it's like his heart.
Yeah.
Like
And then we started it with Tony Scott too, and that's just another. You just like really.
yeah,
see
it's
it.
a real. But like, dude, like
Pelham 1, 2, 3 might be the weakest one though.
yeah. Well, I mean, Domino is the weakest one.
Oh, I haven't. Yeah.
That's like one of his newer ones. But have you seen History of Violence or Eastern Promises?
Oh, with Vigo.
Yeah.
Not. It's like a lot of times I'll say yes, but
Okay,
like if I
okay.
can't picture the plot,
So
I might as well say no.
So I recently, or actually, when I say recently, I mean like a year or two ago. And this, anyone listening, like this is the cool thing about this is like, so David Cronenberg is like probably like the illest, overlooked director of all time. He did The Fly, Videodrome, a movie called Spider.
I don't know any of these.
Yeah.
Titles.
Well, you know The Fly. The Fly is like,
I don't.
it's with Jeff Goldblum. And he's like, it's
I
like,
don't think I saw that.
yeah, I don't.
it's like, dude, okay, he did, he's kind of like a horror film guy, but like in a drama genre. So it's like drama that's so fucking intense. Like Eastern Promises is with Viggo Mortensen, and it's about like, you know,
Russian mafia or something.
mafia shit. But it has this, just David Cronenberg is someone that everyone should just.
Like, what's his newest movie?
He did one with Edward. Why do I want to call who plays Edward in Twilight? You know, Good Time.
Robert Pattinson.
I always call Robert Pattinson Edward.
Well, that's his name in Twilight.
Yeah, I know. It's stupid. So Robert Pattinson did one called Cosmopolitan or something, and that was like his newer one. I mean, I don't think unless I'm forgetting something, I don't think he's done anything since then. But let me just look. I'm gonna have to be my own.
People are gonna be able to do some deep dives on movies right now. I think that's the one thing is like while we just got to batten down the hatches while everybody's going to lose out financially for a bit. I'm bummed that I'm not going to be going on vacations anytime soon. But if we can really take the time to actually work on ourselves, work on
I'm going to be doing more podcasts.
Yeah,
I'm going to be shooting more like little scenes, because that's another thing we're doing is we're shooting scenes that kind of like parallel this idea of like ego or losing or like drug addiction and stuff.
It's a good time if everybody takes a beat to really do inward dives. Listen to podcasts that can help you mentally.
Yeah, I mean, we all have that we all have that like rainy day kind of like list. It's like, oh, when like one day I'll get to this. One day I'll watch this movie. One day when I have time. And it's like,
there you go.
Yeah, here we go. We've got plenty of time.
Yeah, Cosmopolis with
he's killing himself with that title there.
Yeah, it actually wasn't very. It's like he Robert Pattinson, like after he did Twilight, he was like he felt like Kurt Cobain did after the success. Like he never thought that movie was going to be such a big success, and it wasn't the cool indie film that he thought it was going to be, but it gave him like so much success. And then he was like, after that, he specifically chose to work with like Good Time with the Safdie brothers and Cosmopolis with David Cronenberg. And I from what I've heard, he's always wanted to work with like Harmony Korine and
wait, you just sorry to cut you off. You touched on something so rad that's I think maybe something that's worth our time. It's like the coolest thing is when people have success. I mean, real massive success when they're just not even trying for it.
Right.
I see this all the time. That the kid with a guitar in their bedroom, and that's I don't know. That kind of success to me is so amazing compared to like when there's a big team of people and they're well funded and like, do you know what I mean?
In Robert's case, I don't think that like true artists don't necessarily not want success. They just want it to be like dope. Right. Yeah. And they want it to be like what they want it to be, which usually doesn't mean mainstream, because it usually means that it's going to affect a smaller group of people in a more profound way.
Yeah.
Like Harmony or Larry Clark or David Cronenberg. I mean, David, I think Quentin Tarantino and Martin Scorsese are like examples of how you can do something really dope, but also have it be like.
But the ones it happens that they become bigger less of the time, but the ones that do, it's a much bigger, long time, like Nirvana, for example.
Right.
Like because he was not doing it for that reason, but when it was that, it was so genuine that it's like it became evergreen.
It's like genuine success.
Yeah.
Genuine success versus like a bunch of people in a corporate board, like trying to manufacture success, I guess.
Yeah, like I want to say Billie Eilish is a kind of a good example of that.
Yeah, like innocent
and Tame Impala. Like I want to say like that's why I love M83 and MGMT. I think MGMT is a good example of that too. I think Vampire Weekend is a good.
I like the fact that I went to like the last event. Tame Impala at the Forum was like they just squeezed the last show in at the Forum, and they're like. Pretty much, we were talking to one of the main guys at the Forum while we were there, and he's like, "Yeah, this is probably going to be it for a minute."
They did have Tame Impala the night after, and I think that was the last show. That was the last show.
I got a good one. I went. It was my birthday, so I like to take little mushrooms from time to time. But we're like really enjoying the show, and I'm like, "Fuck, I need to just stretch my legs, take a little breath here." Get away from everybody for a second. So I walk back to the Forum Club to go grab a drink. And then I roll in. I'm just kind of like, I don't want to talk to anybody for a second because I'm just kind of like, fucking, it's a lot going on for me at the moment. And then to my left pops Beck and to my right pops Diplo. Whoa. And now I'm just like two dudes that of course I want to talk to, but I'm kind of not in the headspace where I'm trying to have like a deep conversation with one of my idols and then somebody that I kind of know. Yeah. And especially I realized at that moment, the weirdest thing is like when you kind of know something, like me and Diplo kind of know each other.
He recognizes you.
Yeah. He recognizes me, but he doesn't know from where.
You would have to catch him up.
Yeah. Like, do you remember that one time in Vegas? Like it was, you were wearing that like,
and which basically happens to him every day.
Yeah. And so sure. And I know that too. So I started going through that and I was just like, oh my God, this is exhausting. I'm going to catch him up. And then we're all of a sudden, then Jason walks up and we're talking about sonics of drum sounds with Beck. And I'm like,
I mean, speaking of guys that I think fit right into that category, Diplo and Beck. And I think that like the guys in my mind who did it like the best are like probably Daft Punk. Like, and I think the French have this like really cool thing where like they're fucking obsessed with like perfecting something so much that they don't even care about the results. It's almost like Steve always used to talk about this. Like they appreciate like fine like wine and cheese, and like the French, like when you go to France, they like take like long.
The Japanese
have you been before?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They have,
Japanese
like,
friends.
the Japanese are like
Yeah.
that very much. So
That's so dope. Like, and I think that America being this like business capitalism,
yeah.
like it just kind of, you know.
Kellen was saying this because he just got
I
back.
think there's a balance though, you know, because sometimes when you go too hard in that French shit, like you don't. There's probably like a fucking million Daft Punks that never got success in France. I don't know.
But kind of what you're talking about to
I'm
an
not
extent
like
is like
devaluing capitalism.
No,
I think it's important. You know,
it's kind of like passion, right? So like, if you ever talk to anybody who like just has unrelenting passion for what they do, you know, I've been on a trip recently where it was like wine tasting, and you could kind of tell the difference between some vineyards where it's like somebody's talking about it and it's like, this is our red, this is our that, you know, it's very kind of mechanical. And then you talk to some people who like, you could feel them like digging in the earth and planting plants. Like the way they talk about their product or what they do, like, this is going to be amazing. This person cares so fucking much about providing something truly incredible. And I think that's, you know, that, by the way, that's what I think success is.
right?
Whether or not that vineyard sells more wine than other ones, that's success. That's like literally trying to push the boundary forward of whatever it is you're doing. Music, wine, food.
Well,
movies.
whenever you're happy with it and you've gone as far as you want to go with it, then you've succeeded in creating the thing that you wanted to create.
Yeah.
But like, dude, Daft Punk, like I just trip on them. I just trip on like how insane like what they did. Actually, I don't think people really like. I still to this day like don't really know what they look like.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does.
It's insane.
I mean, that's
you
what's,
can you can look it up.
Yeah, but like, dude,
There
it's
are some
fucking
pictures,
like. Do you know how hard it would be to like when you first start getting some success to be like, no, we're not going to do that interview.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Like,
to
oh
not
my
even have your face
God,
to like,
and then if we are going to do it, like you can't, we're going to have to do it in our helmets. Like what? You guys are actually kind of retarded and insane and like, okay, whatever.
Wait, have they done? I actually don't know this. Have
In the very
have they done interviews
in the very beginning in like the 90s, in like the late 90s?
They talked with their helmets on. Like,
yeah, but like
muffled.
only
Like,
there's like a couple. Like I think there's like one interview. You know, like right after their name, like their name came from an article that someone wrote about describing their sound as like Daft Punk, which is like, daft isn't like a good word to describe anything. It's kind of like bland, I think, or something. Daft, like punk. And it was actually a negative article about them. And they're like, oh, that's cool. Let's name ourselves that. And I think they did like one interview. And then they figured out what they were actually, and I think like by creating stuff, by doing the thing, you figure out what that thing is and what it can be. I also think that's like a really important lesson I've learned in like doing things is like to sit down and try to plan like the whole, it's like you gotta like start like doing it to figure out what it is, you know?
No, definitely. I mean, it always kind of cracks me up where like, sometimes you meet with like, you know, in my field, it's like young songwriters and producers.
Right.
And you kind of talk to them about like what they want to do and achieve. And it's kind of crazy how some of them come in with like, well, 5 years from now, I want to be working on the Taylor Swift record. And you're like, whoa. Like at your stage of where you're at, like you just got to worry about like the next like month, you know, and then kind of just go where it takes you, you know, because 5 years from now, Taylor might not even be an artist, you know. But yeah, some people have really unrealistic expectations and mainly look too far out, you know.
That could affect them negatively, their original progress.
But I mean, I think that having a goal like that is like, I can't imagine that kind of a goal is coming from a place of like authenticity and like like wanting to like loving the process. It's like a very results driven, fear based like goal of like external results driven thing.
It can be healthy to have a 5 year, a 5 year and a 10-year vision.
That particular goal is like a
too defined.
No,
you know?
no, it's just a results thing. It's like I want to make the best music I can tomorrow, and I want to do a specific like.
I want to be a songwriter that matters. Right, like 5 years from now. Whose
dream is to be writing Taylor Swift songs? Like someone who's just wanting to be successful or like make a lot of money or like have like that. I think in the rare case that's like an actual authentic. Like I enjoy. I don't know.
Like
it's hard to explain.
No, like a better way is even like, you know, I want to write a song with an artist I know and look up to. That's a much different way of saying it. It's it's all about the process. Like
exactly, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's all about going like, I want to make amazing music. I want to work with artists that I look up to. I want to work with people that I've like been excited about.
And that's like where this whole concept comes back into play. It's like, you know, you're not really thinking so much about winning or the results. You're more so thinking about like something that's more like inside you, you know, something that's more authentic and something that's it's like Jordan Peterson talks about winning and losing. Jordan Peterson talks about like the game of life. It's not like a game. It's a series of games. It's games every day.
It's games every minute.
Yeah, and
every second.
And then he talks about teaching your kid to play well with others, like to actually play the game, to enjoy playing the game, and to be able to play it with other people well, rather than just wanting to win.
Yeah, I have such a good story about that, and I remember one of my friends, Jeremy, and he was too smart for where we were. But you remember for a little bit, GoldenEye on the James Bond game
for sure.
And I remember he had the system and he had the game, and everybody would come over and play. And I remember
that was at my house too.
Yeah, and so. Like, he was so profound, and now looking back on it, this has probably been 25 years later. I remember we all came over one day and everybody was playing, and it was like our first little thing about gambling, right? Like everybody brought $5, and like the person who won this like tournament and everything would win it all. And I remember Jeremy like owned the system, and he ended up coming in like something like 4th place. There were 10 of us. And I remember him just like having this huge like smile on his face. Like at the end of the day, I'm like, dude, why the fuck are you so happy? Like you didn't win anything. He's like, dude, look at how amazing this day's been. Like all of us have been here having this great time. Yeah. Like I fucking won, you know? And I remember like being so young, but being like, holy shit, actually that's kind of rad.
He like facilitated it.
Yeah, he facilitated.
He got all the people together. And
I mean, look, I think like that is something that we all have in common. I think like creating something, whether one person appreciates it, 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people, That's what drives people like us, people like my clients. That's what success is for a songwriter, for an artist, for videographers, like creating something that like impacts people even in a small little way. Like in my business, if you could affect somebody in 3 minutes or however long that song is and have a positive impact on their life, or just honestly even not even positive, just an impact, right? Because sometimes a negative impact could affect somebody positively.
Right.
But like that's what's the most amazing thing. If you could just create something out of nowhere, that's what drives society forward. That's what drives everyone. And that's like the most beautiful thing.
Yeah, I've a lot of the people I look up to that I they're like people that I'm influenced by are impacting the world, but like it's actually not in a like like art is meant to touch you, and it's not, you don't actually have control over how it touches someone. So like some of my favorite things, like Gummo, for example, or Kids, or they're like, a lot of people probably don't like those things, but they touched them. Whether it was good or bad, that's like, art is meant to be, like sometimes paintings are made just to make you feel like scared or like not like good, or it's like,
I mean, look, like
Veronica, will you press record on that?
I mean, even in music, and I'm only bringing it up because that's where I work. It's like, I know positive songs that have affected people negatively, right? Like,
yeah.
If you're just going through a shitty breakup and you hear a song about like how amazing love is, that, you know, that can have a negative. So even a positive song about how great love is affecting somebody in a negative way, where they're like, fuck, I just had that. But ultimately, you know, that's the point of art. It will affect everybody in different ways. People will watch different movies for different and pull away different things and feel differently about them.
The problem with like me and the whole like James Bond like analogy is that like I am by nature like super competitive. That's the problem. Like I don't like,
because you're worried about the results.
Yeah,
as opposed to like enjoying.
I was
enjoying playing your friends
for so long, bro. Like, and it's such a struggle for me in particular, and that's why I need to do this, because like I don't like, I'll avoid certain competitive things just because I can't deal with that feeling of losing.
Yeah,
but that just comes from like a warped perception of what that means. Like, you're not a loser because you lost a game. But I think I am, because I'm like insecure and whatever. My dad never gave me enough fucking attaboys, so I'm like constantly looking for those. But like, yeah, if you break off the tip, also watch how much like weight you're putting on that, because they're kind of like cheap. Like, if you keep it bent, it won't have so much. Yeah, like that. That's a good. Yeah, I just need to be less. I need to constantly remind myself of that. Like, I just want to have fun with my friends, and losing.
No, I mean,
like when your girlfriend says, "Why didn't you do this?" and you're like defending yourself till the bitter end because you're like afraid that she'll see that you're really a piece of shit. I mean, it's some high level psychology shit, but like that's like my thing, you know?
Yeah, I can get. I'm so competitive when I'm in it, and I'll do my damnedest to win whatever tournament that is, but I definitely turn it off right after it happens.
Yeah, I don't know how.
I'm like, then it's just because there's nothing for me more important than like doing shit with my friends.
Yeah,
there's nothing in my life. The only thing I really care about is doing that, and it's actually, if you surround yourself with friends and you keep those relationships, always you can celebrate everybody's wins, right? And then it's like I'm winning all the time because in my inner circle I've got wins happening all day long.
Yeah.
And then it's like sort of counteracts some of the losses.
Do you remember that game of Monopoly we played in Mammoth or in Big Bear with Carrie Garwood, and it became like a really, really, I don't even remember what happened that night.
Yeah, it became gnarly.
But it got so gnarly.
Because there's a point in Monopoly where you can start doing some side dealing trades.
But
Yeah,
you're like
no.
taking everyone's. It's really gnarly.
Yeah, I remember. I don't. Yeah, you're right. I
But
don't
see,
remember
that's the thing, though. Is like Monopoly is like the game of life.
No,
where
but
you have different equity, and then every time someone steps on it, you're benefiting from their thing, and it's like.
No,
it's
I mean,
a
look,
weird-
on like a primal level, right? There is that ingrained in us, like survival of the fittest,
Yeah.
and only the strong survive, and it like on a primal level, we're supposed to succeed, right? There's two human beings and there's one animal to eat, right? Like only one of them is going to get that animal to eat and survive. But now we've gotten to a point, I think, in society where it's like, no, actually, we could share that animal and we could all eat. And like, what if we work with a team of us? We could capture more animals to eat. You know, so I think like the evolution of success, the evolution of like enjoying the process, the evolution of like not being so result driven, it is now much more possible than it was.
just like to be happy.
Yeah, just to be,
what is it going to take for me to just be able to like be happy?
I
think
mean,
is the only goal for me.
For you, I mean,
it's different for everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For me, it's just being pretty close, probably to what yours is, but being with friends. I'm just like being in like a nice pack,
Which makes you happy.
which makes me happy.
Yeah, like because who wants to be successful and miserable?
yeah, no, I mean, look, like success. If you don't have anybody to share your success with,
Yeah.
are you really successful?
It's
You know?
weird because like certain really successful people, they share it with like others that are like afraid of them or like need them or like they, you know, if you step on enough people to get above everyone, they're going to be like afraid of you and resent you, but they're also going to like need to have a good relationship with you. And that's like where it gets like tricky for some people. What are some of your like favorite pieces? Like, what do you listen to?
I mean, it's funny and kind of fucked up at the same time. It's I'll use Tim as an example, and then I'll come to me. Yesterday, we're watching a movie with our friend Noel, and Tim would like talk about how amazing the shot is and the cinematography. And for me, with
What movie was it?
what were we watching?
Oh, Queen and Slim, which is fire.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Noel would want to watch
No,
that. But it's a good one to watch with Noel. Has she not seen
No.
it?
No, it was
see
dark.
it.
It is really
yeah, it was
good.
really
The cinematography
Like,
is.
I know the cinematography is going to be amazing just from the poster, but like, is it really like a good movie?
100%.
Yes.
Oh,
No, it's
fuck
amazing.
yeah.
That shit's
So-
like bizarre. I'd give that thing a 95.
Wow.
So it's like, unfortunately for me, musically, because I have to listen to so much music for work and my ears get tired, it's like very rarely do I get to listen to music for fun anymore without kind of picking it apart. So like for me, there's very few new artists that I'm a fan of. Like I try and listen, and there are like a handful of ones that like touch me as a fan, right? That I could look past it, you know, but really it's like a lot of the things that I listened to as a kid, as a teenager, that I still kind of come back to, you know, before music was my career. So I still listen to like all my old, you know, punk rock, from like Lagwagon to No Use for a Name, like the Fat Records days to like Epitaph. I mean, that's what I grew up listening to. I mean, I had my like bar mitzvah Tupac, Biggie.
He's got
like,
some weird ones. He likes
Beastie
10-foot
Boys.
pole.
Yeah, 10-foot pole. Come on, 10-foot pole was a great punk rock band.
Yeah, I should get into them more. I never really dove deep enough into them.
Well, I remember
what about like Pulley?
Pulley, of course. I mean, well, Pulley and 10-foot pole actually shared a singer. I think it was like that baseball pitcher.
Yeah,
and I remember being
yeah.
like, "That's so cool." He's like a baseball player and sings punk rock, and like,
Yeah.
I just became a fan of both. But yeah,
That's why I mentioned them, because I knew there was some kind of correlation. I thought.
Yeah, I think it was like the lead singer of 10-foot pole left 10-foot pole to start Pulley.
Yeah, and there was also something about one of the members of Pulley coming from early Strung Out or going to Strung Out or something in that vein.
But yeah, I mean, those were the bands I listened to, and
So do you like understand? Do you realize like what Joey Cape is like singing about when you listen to Lagwagon? Like a lot of the times, like
Yeah, I was definitely, and maybe that's why I ended up being in music. Like, I was definitely the kid who would listen to the music, but also like go through like the liner notes and like who produced this and like where the studio was and like read all the lyrics and.
But what do you think? Lagwag, like, I mean, not that all their songs are about any one thing, but like, do you have any, like, what would be your opinion on like what they sing about? I don't really know all their lyrics either, but like, I just feel like Lagwagon's always talking about like some weird high level, like emotional.
Yeah,
like,
no, but I mean,
insecurity, like their lyrics are super like complicated and like almost like poetic. In like in your like cleaning up the mess inside my head, like it like I have to fake a smile for the friends that I hate my friends because they make me think about the smile that I'm faking.
Yeah,
like weird like
no
cool.
I mean they like a lot of that stuff was really really deep. Same thing as No Use for a Name.
Yes.
I remember
Strung Out too.
Yeah, Strung Out too. I mean,
No Effects, yeah, for sure.
I mean, No Effects definitely.
Their lyrics are all over the place. Though,
I mean, with No Effects, just as like a Jew growing up, it was like No Effects and Beastie Boys was just like, we're Jews. What up? Like, we actually have some decent artists.
So you really were a music lover.
Yeah,
obviously. Did you ever try to like make music, or did you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I got into this because I was in a band and got into as an artist, and then started producing.
His band got signed.
Yeah, we got signed.
What was it called?
We were called Aces Down. We never released any music. We like broke up before our album ever came out, but we signed with a major label and
you played a lot of shows.
We played a handful of shows. We used to play the Cobalt, and then I remember.
I want to say I recognize that name because I was playing the Cobalt a lot, probably around the time you were.
Yeah, I mean, we were. Yeah,
exactly. How did you guys get signed? Like how
I mean, it was like the stupidest thing. Some kid who went to our high school, his dad was a record exec, and Incubus was this big band, and Hoobastank when they were the tourists, and they went to your high school, and I feel like.
There was a buzz around Agora and Calabasas. We had interest, a different band that, before I was in After Midnight Project with Jason Evigan, we were in, I had this band called ATP, and we had all these like A&R guys sniffing around because we could sell out the Key Club, but it was basically just our friends really, or just our whole high school. But because of Incubus and everything, there was like what's going on with the water here in this town? Like,
yeah, it was like there was nothing to do out here, right? Like this was well before Calabasas had the Kardashians and Bieber and all that. And it was like you'd focus on school. Some people did sports, and like some of us would lock ourselves up in a garage and play music. And then all of a sudden, record exec dad asked his kid, like, who's the hot new band in your high school? And it happened to be us at the time.
So he came out and saw you guys play and was like, let's do this?
Yeah, let's do this. You guys are great.
What label was it?
I think it was like through Sony BMG, but it was so long ago. It's funny. I found the contract maybe a couple years back, and I like looked through it and I was like, we had the shittiest attorney because it was like the worst terms ever. It was like we almost signed like a boy band type deal where like they just own you.
Yeah.
But yeah, they definitely gave us some money, and that's kind of what spurred, for me personally going into the recording studio the first time. Like my mind was blown. I was like, I thought a recording studio is you'd go in, you'd set up just like you're playing a show, and they'd record you all. And that was my first time doing like multi-tracking and like, wait, we could try out different snare drums or different like stomp pedals on the guitar and experiment. And like, I lost my shit. I was like, this is the most amazing creative space to be in. I was like, I need one of these at home. So
it just reminded me of the story where me and, Chris Fortel, our buddy, our mutual friend of all of us three, and Gus Canazio, another mutual friend of all of us. Gus was working at NRG Studios, which is like famous for Linkin Park and all sorts of stuff. Chris Fortel now runs A&R for Epitaph.
Wait, who was famous for Linkin Park?
NRG Studios. And there was like one time where we decided we were going to start this band, and Gus had a friend over at NRG, and they gave us a week for free in the A room and with an engineer, access to every instrument, the whole thing. We went in there with this like amazing opportunity, and all we did for a week was invite girls over and drink in the studio. And it was called Orion. And Orion, yeah.
Really? I thought it was something different.
No, and then
Did you guys,
we
cover
recorded
something?
one. I think basically one instrumental is what we got through in a week, and we had this like great opportunity. It was just early recording studio experience. That was
So
super
Aces Down. Why did it not work?
I mean, so for me personally, I got accepted to USC, and to kind of bring things full circle, I just kind of felt like going to university, and that was an opportunity. Look, my parents are kind of I was first generation. Like my parents immigrated over here, and it was like, okay,
From where?
Argentina and Israel. And it was like how hard they worked to get me to a place where like, shit, I got this offer to go to USC, and you know, ultimately at the time, it's funny, at the time I didn't want to. I wanted to take like a leave of absence and maybe take a year off and continue music. I'm really happy I didn't. But ultimately, at the time, it was a really tough thing that I was wrestling with as a 17-year-old kid. Like here, you've got an opportunity.
A lot of kids too.
Yeah, I mean,
the same thing happened with Dane. He ended up going to San Diego, and he pretty much broke up Therapist, which I think could have been a great band.
I mean, look, I as part of what we did in the music business, we had found, me and one of my clients, Ian, we had found this band playing in Orange County called The Jakes. And they were an incredible band that we helped develop and did their first EP.
Wait, the one that became Young the Giant?
Yeah, they ended up changing their name to Young the Giant. Really, really big band. They've had a lot of success. Ian and I found them before they had a manager or anything.
Wait, so Ian was in your band?
I was trying to sign the Jakes.
Well, so
I tried to sign them with Perry Watts Russell.
Yeah, so Ian did that first EP, Shake My Hand.
Yeah, their attorney's deal, it was just too gnarly. We couldn't do it.
But what's crazy is I remember when we found them and they finally got a manager and this, the lead singer, I'm totally blanking on his name right now, was going to school at Stanford. And he comes from like a very like, I think it was like Indian, like traditional conservative family. And I remember whoever it was at the time had to call his parents and say, look, like this band could actually turn into something. Your kid's going to drop out or take a leave of absence from Stanford. And like, obviously, I'm pretty sure they're glad they did. The band's had a shit ton of success. But yeah, I mean, that's something that I think is really tough for a lot of kids when you're 17 years old. And it's like, do you want to go to school and get a shit ton of debt to like learn things, or are you going to just go off and do what you want to do?
Yeah, I was also trying to sign Mike Posner. And part of the deal when I brought him in to meet with the whole label and everything. And part of the deal was we could sign him because he had this, like, he was making songs out of his dorm room, and he got kind of big on campus. I think.
Oh, yeah, he went to Duke. He definitely went to Duke. I remember this.
And he started playing big shows at Duke, but then he had to promise his parents that he wouldn't do anything with the music outside of Duke until he was graduated. So that was like in the deal points when we brought him in. We didn't sign him. And I regret that because right after he graduated,
it was cooler than me.
Than me, which he already had that song too when I brought him in.
Wow. I had just finished like all my addiction studies courses at fucking Pierce when I either could have done a bunch of hours or when I did the Hypercrush thing was just like starting to happen. It's just like, so you went to school.
Yeah. So I went to USC.
And then
I graduated corporate finance major and I did a music industry minor. And we were talking about this the other day. I started off in finance like right after college. Ian and I were doing stuff like during college. He started doing web design, right? Like we had kind of fucked around in the studio.
So you guys weren't in Aces Down together, but he was like a friend?
Yeah, he was a friend. After Aces Down, I built a studio at my parents' house and we met through some mutual friends and started working on music together, writing and producing, and just kind of stayed in touch while we went to college. And he ended up going to UC Santa Cruz. I went to USC. We got real jobs after, and 3 months into real jobs, it was like, I'm not enjoying life. And like, I'm seeing myself going down a path of like being in a cubicle and working for like a big bank, and none of it was exciting. And I left this like high paying job after college, who a lot of kids like wanted my exact job, and I was miserable.
Yeah.
And I called my parents. I'm like, do you guys mind if I move home and like get my old room back and try and do this music thing? And I'll never forget it. My parents are amazing. They're like, you've got 2 years, but yeah, like do it, follow it.
I mean, that's like learning to lose right there.
Oh, definitely.
Because it wasn't about money.
No, it like money comes when you wake up in the morning and you love what you do.
But also we're lucky to have support.
Yeah,
I
no,
never
definitely.
want to like minimize that, but I think that no matter what situation you're in, like, I mean, Gary Vee talks about this all the time. Like, you can have a job and then also be like working towards a dream, even if it's just to fill your soul.
Oh, definitely. I mean, to some extent, right? That's what hobbies are for some people, and ultimately, a lot of people, I think, wish their hobby became their career.
And if you just keep doing it because you love it and you don't care about the results, I think eventually you will start to see some. I mean, it's really crazy because like at some point, hopefully, we can start making money on like the YouTube and the podcast. I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's not what like drives me, because if it was, I would be like, okay.
You would have given up already.
Yeah, if it did drive you, you wouldn't have success.
But like,
and if you're doing this from why you're doing this.
But the idea of like being able, could you imagine if like this was like generating money?
Yeah.
That would just be beyond my wildest dream. Like that's, to me personally, that's like better than like anything else I could ever think of. Like, oh, cool, writing songs and creating music. Oh, that's cool to make money. Making films, that's cool to make money. But like just sitting around talking to your friends, like what could possibly be better than that? So like the idea of being able to get sponsorship to do that is like so desirable to me that I'm just willing to just like do it just because I keep like doing it. But so you built a studio, and you were making music too in the studio, or was it just Ian?
It was me and Ian.
Just whoever wanted to make music.
Yeah, I mean, literally sometimes we would go out for the night and come back like after hitting the bars at like 2 a.m. and like smoke and like rap and just like, or just create like classical music.
And your parents were like, if they really knew what you were doing, they'd be like, this fool's tripping.
Yeah, no, definitely, but 100%.
But like, and then how did it become like, dude, this is how now you're like fucking crushing it. This dude, by the way, has like a really nice house. It's obviously taken a long time for you to get to this point. I remember like, oh, we got like a thing, It was like,
yeah, no, I mean,
Breathe Carolina, bro.
Yeah,
like we were on tour with Breathe Carolina, or we had just finished doing that tour, and it was the Blackout single.
Yeah,
was that like the first big? Or
that was the first big one that we did,
but it wasn't even like that big.
I mean, what was big, and I think it still kind of holds some weird record.
That's
is like
so fucking
that was
rad.
A band on an indie that ended up having a huge pop single, and then Columbia took it over. But what was so cool about that one is it was actually two of my clients. It was Simon Wilcox and Ian, and that was actually the first real big moment. That was the first one where we're like no longer dealing with like the Fearless Records and smaller indies, and all of a sudden my inbox is like Warner Brothers and Atlantic and Columbia.
It like kind of actually like is frustrating to me, because I just feel like at that time, like I don't know why we didn't get in the studio with one of those guys, because like we had done records with Red One and Danger Hands and Mike Elizondo, and I mean we were like in the studio with people,
massive people,
and I feel like we should have done something with Ian. We just didn't. I don't know why that never happened, but could you imagine if that would have happened and we would have been able to get something that would have been so cool?
No, it would have been rad. What's funny is
like,
actually Ian, one of the first things he did for I mean Universal Motown, which is now not really a label. That's where
after Midnight Project and Hypercrush.
Oh, you guys were signed there too. So Shep Goodman,
yeah, bro.
So Shep Goodman reached out at some point, who had signed Evigan's band, and sent us stems, and Ian did a remix of After Midnight Project. Him and Jason did not know each other at all then. I had known Jason, and yeah, one of the first things for a label that Ian did was remixing After Midnight Project.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's weird when you get signed, and our A&R guy probably just didn't have a relationship with you.
Yeah, no, I mean...
that's just why it didn't happen. But it's just so weird because, like, Tim has always been such a good friend of yours, and I feel like that should have happened.
But Tim and I became good friends, actually, a couple of years after that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if you remember this, because here, I'll kind of fuck with you right now. You and I first met, I think you were in your band. It could have been Hypercrush. I actually think you were in a band with Evigan at the time.
No, I was, yeah.
And my first job, I was 16. I worked at Guitar Center. And you came in and you bought like a Chaos pad or something. There used to be this like thing where like you would move your hand over.
I used my foot.
Your foot,
because I was like DJing.
Okay,
so I would use my foot to do the thing.
So you bought that thing from me when I worked at Guitar Center.
Whoa,
that's crazy. I remember the Chaos pad. So I remember him having that.
So you were at Guitar Center, and you also had the studio at that time.
So I had just built the studio, and it was the funniest thing. This is where my like corporate.
Wow.
This is where my weird corporate finance, like logical side of my head takes over. Is I go, okay, I've got a summer. I've essentially got this like summer to like work, and I'm trying to save up money for studio gear. So like in my head, I'm like looking at all the jobs I could get, and at Guitar Center, you get like 5% above cost.
Yeah.
You get paid not really well. It's like like minimum wage.
But if you're trying to just buy equipment
with the discounts, it was like, I'm making a shit ton of money right now because I'm saving all this money off of all the gear I'm trying to buy. At the same time, you're sitting around all day playing with the gear that you might buy. So it's like, what a better way to try out a bunch of different mics than setting them up at Guitar Center? What a better way to try out different preamps or different like recording software than like sitting there and showing people how to use it all day?
But just to put that into perspective, you were sick. I was in delusion at the time. Okay.
I was maybe like, at 17, maybe about to go to college.
But since then, I've been in like other bands and had an entire thing with Hypercrush, and then now also have a whole different company with Tim, with Ridge, and you just stayed doing your thing, and now you're crushing it. But it took 15 years.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing I just want, like, people like Wickham and, like, I feel like kids that work for us right now, they don't understand. It takes, like, you got to give yourself 5 years just to even,
get your
like...
beak wet.
Yeah, like, and I mean, we're so lucky to have been able to do the shit but it's not just because we spent 5 years doing it. It's because we're coming from a previous 10 years of relationship building.
Yeah, no, we were hustling.
Just keep.
I mean, I remember like the low points. Like I'm trying to think of some low points that some people could latch onto. I remember literally having to check my bank account before I would take out a prospective client and like hold my breath at dinner to make sure they didn't order the
market price.
The market price. Yeah, exactly. The market price seafood, because I didn't know if I swiped my card if it was about to get declined, and just like really having that like.
But you would never like say that to them.
Yeah, of course not.
As far as they're concerned, you're like.
Things are happening, and I'm a successful manager. And
I had that even when we had, we started our company together. I was bankrolling myself off of like, I just left Warner. And I've never been the best at saving. And so I had some money saved up, but I burned through that so quickly when we're paying for an office space.
Well, by the way,
and no income coming in.
And what Tim's talking about is Tim and Dan
started a management company
with Jeremy,
Oh, I wasn't a part of that.
Oh,
Yeah, indirect. I mean, we shared some.
We shared an office space, and we shared a client. It was It Boys, Tall's Brothers.
what was that called?
Roxwell.
And it was you and Jeremy?
Jeremy, Tobin, Jeremy Rosen, Tobin Watkinson. And then we had Brandon Goodman and a couple other.
Sammy was like.
So it's crazy that like the two lowest on the, so Brandon Goodman was like the lowest on our totem pole, and he's now Billie Eilish's manager.
Wow.
Like her main manager.
Yeah. And then, what's
and Amanda Sammy was like the assistant, so maybe even she was lower.
No, Amanda was literally cleaning up Jeremy's dog poo.
And she's now like a executive
Senior VP of A&R at Capitol. I mean, I'm just going to say it because ultimately the ones of us who work in music are the ones who didn't join the company. I think like we all kind of had this, fuck, that doesn't seem like it's healthy. And I mean,
we came into the office to all start a company together, but as the cards unfolded, you stayed.
Myself, Brandon, and Amanda, I think all stayed enough separated where like I just remember, and Tim wasn't super involved in like crafting the direction of the company, but I remember overhearing. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but a couple of people who were involved in it going like, "Yeah, we don't really have to do shit for our clients if we pick up enough of them." A small percentage of them will become successful.
Right.
The rest will be pissed off at us, but fuck it. We could live off of the success of those few. And that kind of went against like everything that I personally believed in.
Mm-hmm.
In like you had to get super involved and roll up your sleeves for every client. And ultimately to take on a new client, you had to love what they do.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But also, the problem, I just didn't have a nut to live on. I just didn't have it. So it's clients that I was bringing in, like Cook Classics, who Dan now manages, or like UC and different guys 10 years later are now crushing it. So if I could have held on for 10 years and had a successful roster.
But if you were to try to explain why that didn't work out, like what would you say?
I'll be from my perspective, lack of patience.
Yeah,
as a third
Tim
party
was like in it, so I'm just curious what his.
I think it would have worked out with longer, spending some more time doing it. At the time, I got an offer to go run artist relations at the guitar company,
right.
And so it's just like I was just down to the. Right. I just was down to the end of my finances, really.
Yeah,
like Dan was talking about, I literally was driving to meetings, just the same thing, like. Just having so little coming in. I was making I had one mixer client that he was actually the one guy that would generate like actual check, because he'd mix something, we'd get paid. But so it was just such little things here and there. So I'd get a couple $1,000, but that'd be completely gone within a month. And so it was and then when I got an offer for a decent amount of money, I had to take it.
No, I mean, look, if you look at my roster, nearly all of my clients, except for Simon Wilcox, is a producer-songwriter. And in large part, it was because the producers
could get their producer fee.
Could get a producer fee, and that would bring income in. Songwriters, the tough part in the music business. The tough part for songwriters is it takes a year and a half for money to come in, sometimes longer. So, somebody like...
Even when they and it takes a long time to even get the point where they make the money.
Yeah. So if you're to give people an idea who are listening, if you write a song today, it might take best case a month to find a home for it, and by the time the artist records it, that's best case. Realistically, on average, it's about 6 months of it bouncing around to different labels and different artists and this and that. Then the artist has to record it. Then they have to have a marketing plan. Then it comes out. So realistically, that song is taking a year to come out from the day it was written, roughly. Sometimes it goes quicker, but on average. Then a song comes out, it starts getting played at radio, people are buying it. There's a 6-month delay for that money, from Spotify to come into the labels. And then the labels hold on to that for 6 months and start to account. And then it finally comes back to the songwriter. So really, you're kind of looking at, you're not seeing a cent from a song for about 2 years from the day you wrote it. Yes, there's advances and ways to like as you start to maybe the song's having success. But really in the scope of it, it's 2 years for that money to be in your bank account. And that makes it really tough. So
With the exception of sync money.
yeah, sync money is paid directly, but on average, I'm talking about the majority of the income, performance royalties and stuff like that, mechanical royalties. So I just, built my company in a way where I had really almost all producers. Again, I still, even to this day, only have one pure songwriter who, only makes her money off the songs and not any upfront producer fees. But it shaped my company. Not having resources, never taking investment, I had to come up with a way to survive short term, because ultimately that becomes the tough thing, is like, if you can't survive short term, you can never succeed long term, right? Mm-hmm. So it becomes that balance of like not selling out, not losing focus on what your passion is, but also balancing it with being realistic, right, on like cost and expenses, and putting food on your plate, being able to like buy stamps to mail invoices and whatnot, right?
But Jeremy was a lawyer.
So he was.
So he probably had a different, not like that he was doing anything wrong. He just didn't have the same love and passion that like maybe someone like.
He was a bit more of the. You need a business mind and you need an
right.
artistic mind. I think both are really good. He did steer more towards the business side, and he actually made a good partner in certain ways, because he could be sort of just look at it from that side.
Which makes sense that he would be thinking about like the volume, like, oh, if we just get enough people, then it's gonna eventually work. But the trick is to have the people that are running each one actually care. Like, I feel like, yeah, I want to say that like,
well, music. I mean, it's tough to kind of say this without getting too deep in it. Music now, there's more artists releasing music than ever before. There's more songs getting put out. I mean, you look at a New Music Friday and it's just so crowded.
I don't even recognize 80% of them. But
success is still very quality over quantity. Like, right? You need such a great song to cut through. And I think, if you look at people maybe financially that are having success, those are people that still have put quality over quantity. Not all the time, but have maybe leaned heavier to that.
Well, especially in the pop world.
Yeah, definitely in the pop world.
But if you're looking at like, Earl Sweatshirt or Brockhampton, or like, the first thing I thought of was like Fish. It's I think it's just different.
Yeah, no, if you're a touring artist, or if you're
I just put Brockhampton in the same category as Fish.
But they're like on the musician side. Fish is like on the musicianship side. They're as good as it gets,
But
like
I think that
real,
like Brockhampton for like right now.
But Brockhampton now,
they're
for
like
instance,
on some They're like real artists.
But they just put Dua Lipa, I think, on their single that's at radio.
Yeah,
so they're making that transition into being a pop artist.
Do you think it's easier now to be successful or to just make a living doing music than it was 20 years ago?
Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, look, 20 years ago, you had no shot unless you knew somebody, you had a big-time manager, ended up having the funds to go into a proper studio. I mean, I think 20 years ago is right. Well, that's right when like ADATs and like home recording.
Okay, so it's easier now.
Yeah, because I mean, now you could just look. You just need a microphone and your iMac.
Do you think that has made a negative or a positive impact on music itself?
Both. Both. You can't have just one.
Yeah.
So like
that's a good answer.
Yeah. Look, you definitely have these. You have an artist like Billie Eilish who maybe 30 years ago wouldn't have gotten a shot because maybe nobody would have taken a chance on, bankrolling the project. Whereas,
well, dude, that's a clear case of like the youth reacting to something that I think only youth would react to. I don't think any suits or like label people would have been like, oh, that's going to work. But because of the reaction that the kids were having, which would have only been possible through the internet, she got to where she
look,
is.
We're probably missing out on some artists though, because we've been so distracted with so many other things, because there is so much, and so many artists that didn't really get to album 2 because they didn't really do much in album 1 that could have been the greatest thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, life isn't going to work out perfectly. You know, the artists that are having the most success aren't necessarily always the hardest working or the more talented. Like, there is a bit of luck, however you want to describe it.
1,000%.
Being at the right place at the right time.
It's not just because I was like in the group. I really do think that Hypercrush caught some really bad breaks, and I think that we had so much. Like, I genuinely think if we would have had a stronger team, we would have done way better.
Yeah, but here's what gets interesting is like, what is the definition of a stronger team?
Just people that like really understand us and care and trust.
I love the way you described it, because some people would describe a stronger team as like a more successful manager.
No.
You know,
we actually had Troy Carter for a minute.
Yeah,
like we were on, like, you know, but like.
No, it
just fucked us up because he ended up leaving because, you know, Gaga was like not really trying to share him. And it fucked us up.
There's a lot of songwriters who will come to me and I'll take a meeting and I just personally don't feel like we're on the same page, right?
Bro, we were in with all the biggest producers in the world. It doesn't mean anything.
No. And so,
what are you doing? You're doing this. It's what do you want? What does the artist think is best for their brand? The only reason that they're even have a brand is because they shaped it. So let's ask them what they think.
No, totally. I mean,
let's not try to tell them what.
Well, that's what I was kind of getting to, is when people go like, oh, any advice on finding a great manager, you know, like, give me some names. And it's like, meet with somebody who's on the same page as you, who goes like, I know where you're trying to go and I could actually help you, and I give a shit. Yeah,
that's, you know? I think giving a shit is just really, that's just the theme of like everything.
Yeah, I mean, like, what I look for in, you know, in songwriters and producers that I meet with is like, do they have something in them that makes me give a shit? Have they written a song? Do they have this like contagious desire to succeed that you go like, this doesn't even feel like work, and I don't care if they call me at 2 a.m. I'm so excited about what this person is doing. I'll do whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. That's what I look for, because then it no longer feels like work. I don't feel like I'm working for this person. I feel like I'm excited to be working with someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, guys. We're approaching 2 hours, which is pretty. It's on the longer side of things, which is good.
That honestly felt like 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's like, how long is this? I'm like, maybe 2 hours. He's
Isn't
like,
it
what?
crazy though? How it just kind of all just, you're like, what are we going to talk about? But it's like, I mean, I honestly think we're obviously hanging out. We're close friends, and we should just do it again, because there's just like so many different like chambers that like I would love to just talk. Yeah, we could talk, like you said, we could talk for a whole hour about like what selling out means and all that stuff, and preference and all that. But
yeah, we'll figure out the next topic, and maybe we'll bring somebody else who like supports that.
I would love to like talk to Ian or anyone. What if we had Jason and Ian on?
Oh, that'd be fucking awesome.
That'd be so fucking cool, because I know Jason really looks up to Ian, and it's probably vice versa.
Yeah, no, those are like two people that we're both all close with, and are having like chart topping success, and both, I mean, you know, they actually live less than a mile away from each other right now, which is hilarious.
Do they not like hang out? Or they're like not really like?
No, I think they do, and like they've done a lot of stuff in the past together, and I'm sure they'll do a lot more in the future.
They're just not hanging out. I mean, they're working.
Yeah.
Well,
and then like
Ian is, I'm sure Jason is hanging out. He has people coming over to the house, but he's just Ian. He's not like,
I think the same way. Like Ian will have people over, but their lives ultimately revolve around what they do for a living.
Yeah,
you know.
and their schedule.
What does it cost to go in with Ian?
I mean,
Like just a producer fee. Does he ever do shit for free on spec?
I mean, very rare. He'll
Right.
occasionally do it when there's something he's just so excited about.
Or
If-
homies with someone.
Yeah, I mean, for Ian, really, at this point, as I'm sure it is with Jason, it's not even like the producer fee no longer matters. The producer
Right.
fee could be whatever it is.
Right.
Like you're talking about guys who ultimately only have so many days a year they're working, writing. And for them, it just, I don't want to speak for Jason. I know with Ian, it's all about like being really careful with his time and going like, do I think I'm right for this project?
Right.
And do I think I'm going to do something amazing?
Because we're going to go in with Jason.
But like people, I mean,
He's the homie. We're hanging out with him anyways.
but like guys at their type of level, this is not me quoting Jason because I actually do not know what his producer fees are. But like, I just know guys at that kind of level. It's between 25 and 75 grand per song.
Yeah, I would say that's about right. It all depends on the artist and look,
And
like
the label and the home.
and the label and
So Ian and Jason are sort of like where like Red One was when the Gaga hits were coming out.
I don't know if they're quite that level,
Because
but
ours were only
Like
50
50 or 15 grand.
or 20.
No, I mean, look,
Diplo's track was like 15.
But look, Timbaland at some point was what 500,000 when he was like on the A level. It was like some crazy shit. No, look, like both those guys have had multiple number one singles.
And just so people understand what we're saying, basically what we're saying is you go into the studio and you make a song. If you want that song, you have to pay $15,000 just to have it.
Yeah, I mean to be able to exploit and release it. Right?
But what if you don't want the song?
So I mean,
you don't have to pay it.
yeah, you don't have to.
You
pay
don't have to
it.
pay any money.
Correct. So
So when we went in with Danger Hands, we had to pay for studio time.
Yeah,
He was on the level where it was like, you don't even work with me.
That
unless
by the
you
way,
pay
that's
me.
a really common thing, and I'll tell you why. That becomes a common thing because as certain producers' time becomes more valuable and this and that kind of weeds out a little bit of the time wasters, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because like ultimately, if you're a serious artist going in with a serious producer and your label is not willing to pay a $500 or $1,000 a day fee,
Right.
like there's an actual cost associated with the studio, like having
sure.
all that gear on, all of that. So it's just a way to kind of even things out. So it's very rarely are they turning a profit on the day rate. That's just
Well,
like,
they're paying the engineer.
yeah,
They're
engineer
just-
to be there.
everyone's
Yeah,
getting
exactly. So
their-
it's a way to kind of cover costs.
Well, also, by the way, when you're paying the producer fee, you're going in the studio and writing a song. But theoretically, when you're paying the producer fee, they're not just like what you did that day is more or less a demo. They're actually finishing the production of it,
Right.
like tweaking the vocals, tuning the vocals, trimming the fat,
Mixing the song.
beefing the. I mean, there's usually a mixer also on top of that, but like just beefing the sounds up, like really adding their little stuff to it. A lot of times people are so quick now that what they do in that day can be almost pretty close to what the production
But
actually
that's
is.
only because they have a whole lifetime of developing tricks and
Yeah.
shortcuts and chains and like things.
No, and even by the way, even sometimes like, you know, to touch on what we started with, sometimes it's the idea is already pretty developed. So like, you know, sometimes Ian or Jason or any of these producer songwriters have spent a lot of days before coming up with enough ideas and track starts and this and that like, you know, you are getting something that's slightly more ready to go. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, we should get Jason and Ian. We should get some old school punk rockers. We, you know,
Yeah, we'll do it again.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, this has
thanks
been a
for
pleasure.
this.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.